which with Miss Chamberlain again, and she can make me the co-host. I can make her back the host. Let's see. All right, go ahead, Miss Chamberlain, make back the co-host. And then as soon as we get this done, we can go ahead and start.
Okay, Judge, everyone's co-host.
All right. Okay, everybody, we can go ahead and get back started. And once again, if everybody could just, attorneys just state their name for Ms. Sanders, because she said she may not be so familiar with some of the lawyers that are on here today. What y'all do, we can get started if everyone's ready.
Good morning, Ms. Sanders. Adam Abadi for the state.
And good morning, Ms. Sanders. Ivory Gowdy for the defense. Last name G as in Gerald, O as in Oscar, U as in Ursula, D as in David, I as in Yolanda.
I couldn't hear the rest of what you said. I heard G-O and then it got muffled. Could you please?
So G-O, U as in Ursula, D as in David, Y as in Yolanda, Gowdy.
Okay.
Is she here now? Is that better?
Yes, you can just spell it out without using it gets muffled.
It's Goudy. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Is everyone ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Body.
State would call Detective Savannah Berry.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth on your God? Please say your first and last name and spell it for the record.
Savannah Berry, SAVANNAHBERRY.
Thank you, Detective. That microphone doesn't have to be pulled right up to you. If it does, it makes it real complicated. I mean, not so far away, but yeah, you don't have to be right up at it. Should be able to hear you. You just keep your eye on the court reporter here in the black blouse with the kind of wooden slats behind her. On the screen. Oh, she can't see the screen. Mr. Abadi, if either one of you see Miss Sanders kind of waving her hands, you'll know that she can't hear.
Okay.
Yes,
You see
Your
the
Honor.
court report? Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Detective Berry.
Good morning.
Can you tell the court how you are currently employed?
With the City of Atlanta Police Department Homicide Unit.
And how long have you been employed? One with the City of Atlanta Police Department.
Almost 10 years.
And how long have you been assigned to the homicide unit?
Almost 4 years.
And can you tell the court how you became the lead detective for an incident that occurred on June 2nd of 2022?
Yes, I was called in that evening of June 2nd, 2022 to come and respond to 840 Humphrey Street. It was just my turn to take that very next case. And upon that call, I arrived on scene.
And you said 840 Humphrey Street.
540.
540 Humphrey Street?
Yes, which are our apartment complex there in Mechanicsville.
Okay. And is that here in Fulton County?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the court, you said you were dispatched to 540 Humphrey Street for what purpose?
To respond to a person shot and unresponsive. He was, the decedent was transported to Grady Hospital at that location where he was pronounced deceased. And at that time was when I was called out to investigate this homicide.
And can you tell the court about what time, I guess the 911 call was received and about what time you were able to get to the location?
I'm not accurate on the time of the 911 call. I respond on scene at about 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m.
Okay. And when you arrive on scene, are you the first person on scene or are there other officers and detectives who have already arrived?
Yes, there were other officers and detectives on scene.
Okay. And prior to, I guess, you beginning your part of the investigation, did you speak to those officers and detectives to get a bearing of what they first encountered when they arrived?
Yes, sir.
And in addition to the officers and other detectives in your unit that were present, were there any witnesses on scene that had witnessed the shooting?
Well, upon my arrival, the information I was given from other investigators were that I had surveillance cameras, as well as potential witness, which would be the best friend from what I was told of the decedent. His name is Mr. Tucker. Mr. Tucker was on scene, however.
Barry, I'm sorry, you're just speaking a little bit too quick. Could you go back to, you said you spoke to the initial investigator?
Okay. And had one investigator that was looking at surveillance cameras. Another had interviewed who I understand is the best friend of the decedent. Upon my arrival, that particular witness who was with the decedent left the scene. His aunt was still there on scene, who just advised that her nephew did not want to speak. Other
And-
witnesses,
Were you able to identify who the decedent was?
yes,
And who was
yes.
the
The
decedent?
decedent, 17-year-old Dravion Dre Matthews.
And you said the best friend of the decedent, Mr. Tucker, his aunt was on scene and she advised you that he was there but didn't want to speak to you at that time.
Correct, but he did give a statement to one of the investigators who were there initially.
Okay.
His statement didn't give much information. Again, the decedent's best friend. However, there were other witnesses who came forth and told me specifically to look into the particular defendant who's here today, who goes by the nickname of Rock.
And through your investigation, when you initially received the nickname of Rock, were you able to identify Rock's birth name or legal name?
Yes, I was.
And can you tell the court what is that, or what was his identity?
It's Roderick Teasley.
Okay. And you said there was an investigator who was first looking or investigating as to whether there was video surveillance.
That's correct.
And were you and your investigative team able to find video surveillance?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the court, upon finding and reviewing the video surveillance, was the defendant on or captured on the video surveillance?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the court what you saw the defendant doing on that video surveillance right after the shooting?
Yes, 10 seconds after the shooting was where I was able to see the defendant with a handgun in his hand.
And can you tell the court in the video surveillance, do you see the defendant doing anything else within the video surveillance that you viewed?
No, sir.
Okay. And did the video surveillance that you were able to locate and collect, was the shooting included on it?
No, sir.
Okay. And was the shooting outside, I guess, the purview of the cameras?
It was directly outside of the building of which I was able to see Mr. Teasley on camera with that handgun.
Okay. And can you tell the court how far is the building that you see the defendant
Yards.
handgun?
I
from?
understand. No more than 15 yards.
Now, in your review of the video surveillance, are you also able to see other witnesses that were close to the scene?
Yes, yes, I was.
And were you able to identify any of those witnesses?
Yes,
And can you tell the court who you were able to identify?
I was able to identify Antonio Dixon, his brother Jabari Dixon. Those are the two that I knew by name who witnessed this particular incident.
And were they on scene when you arrived that evening or no?
No, sir.
Okay. And as you are at the scene investigating and processing it, were any shell casings or any other ballistic evidence found on scene?
Yes,
Okay, can you tell the court if you can recall what ballistics evidence was recovered?
not able to say which caliber and how many there were,
Okay.
but I can say that they were shot from the same weapon,
You can say they were shot from the same
from
weapon.
the same weapon.
So based on your investigation, only one firearm was used in the shooting killing of Mr. Matthew.
That's correct.
Now, upon identifying both Mr. Antonio and Jabari Dixon, can you tell the court kind of what your next steps were?
Well, they were not willing to speak with me. It was not until I was gonna say Mr. Dixon, but Jabari Dixon was placed in custody the same time as Mr. Teasley the same morning. And upon Mirandizing that subject for a different case, an unrelated case, was when he was able to tell me that he did see the defendant shoot and kill Mr. Matthews.
Okay, so when Jabari Dixon was arrested and Mirandized, you spoke to him and not about his case, but about this unrelated case
That's correct.
to his arrest. And during that interview with Mr. Dixon, he told you he actually saw the defendant, Roderick Teasley, shoot and kill Mr. Matthew.
That's correct.
Now, you said that on that same day, the defendant was also arrested by fugitive.
That's correct.
Okay. And upon his arrest, did you have an opportunity to speak with him?
Yes,
And prior to speaking with him, did you advise him of his Miranda rights?
yes,
And after advising him of each of the rights he'd be waiving, if he agreed to speak with you, did he waive those rights?
he did.
Okay, and upon his waiver of those rights, did you then begin your interview with the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell the court what, if anything, the defendant told you during that interview?
Yes, sir. Now, that was not my first interview with Mr. Teasley.
Okay,
My very first interview with Mr. Teasley, we met and he let me know that he was out of town. He was in California. The second time we spoke, he was on the way to California, approaching Texas at the time of the shooting. And then the third time we spoke, I believe it was the time when you're asking about, when I Mirandized him, he was in custody, was when he did admit that he was there on scene. He heard the altercation between the decedent and some other people, he advised. He was very adamant that he did not have a gun at all. He doesn't have a gun. After showing him that I see him with the gun, then he advised, well, if I did have a gun, it would be my child's mother's gun. His child's mother is the one who lives in the particular building just yards away from where this incident happened. And at which time he stated that his brother did come on scene. He did hear gunshots. He pulled out the gun just for protection. And that was his statement.
okay. And just so it's clear for the court and for the record, prior to Mr. Teasley's arrest, you spoke with him 2 other times when he was not in custody.
That's correct.
And that would have been closer in time to when the shooting occurred, correct?
That's correct.
And during the your first encounter, was it over the phone or in person?
Each were in person.
Okay. And the first in-person non-custodial, I guess, interaction you had with the defendant, he told you he was in California at the time of the shooting,
That's correct.
despite him being on video.
That is correct. I didn't tell him about the video. On that first interview, when he left, I showed him a picture of a still shot with him being on that surveillance footage. I was able to crop out the handgun.
Mhm.
And he confirmed that it was him at that time.
And then close in time, I guess, to that first initial encounter, you had a second in-person encounter.
That's correct.
And during that encounter or conversation, he again told you he was in Texas, but on his way to California, despite him seeing the photo of him on scene.
That is correct.
Okay. And then he was arrested on looks like July 7th of 2022.
Yes.
And after Mirandizing him, he again agreed to speak with you.
Yes.
And that's when he told you that he was on scene, but didn't have a gun.
Right.
And you said you showed him the photograph of him actually holding the gun 10 seconds
Same,
after
yeah.
the shooting.
It's the same photograph that I gave him at first, but without the cropping and the editing.
And do you see the defendant, Roderick Teasley, here in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
And
Sitting in between these 2 females with the blue jumpsuit.
Okay. Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
All right, noted.
And Your Honor, I don't believe I have any further questions for Detective Barry. Thank you.
All right, Cross.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
And Ms. Sanders, can you also hear me okay?
If you could speak up just a little bit into the mic.
All right, can you hear me better? I don't want to disrupt the mic. Okay. All right, so Detective Barry, good morning.
Good morning.
Besides yourself, who else responded on the night of June 2nd?
Initially, because the decedent didn't pass immediately, it was actually the aggravated assault team who responded after the Zone 3 units responded to the actual 911 call of some person shot.
And do you know approximately how many officers responded on June 2nd?
The Zone 3 units, approximately 5.
And I'm assuming these officers had on body camera upon arrival,
Yes, ma'am.
and they were wearing that body camera upon arrival,
Yes, ma'am.
and that's all been preserved and recorded for later review.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, you said that upon arrival, there were multiple investigators present,
Yes.
and you said that one in particular was speaking to the aunt of a juvenile.
Yes.
Okay. And then there was another investigator trying to work to secure whatever surveillance footage existed at the property.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, do you know the name of the actual apartments where this took place?
The Mechanicsville apartments consist of 4 properties. I can't remember the name of this one. I want to say Central Station, but I'm not sure.
Oh, understood. So the investigator that is speaking to Aunt, do you have that individual's name?
Yes, Detective Malone. He would be the same investigator who actually spoke with Mr. Tucker.
Okay. Now, what was Mr. Tucker's first name?
He gave me a false name he gave us a false name that night, but it's actually Xavier Tucker.
You have a spelling of that name?
Sure. ZAVION TUCKER.
And what was his age at the time of the conversation?
I'm not sure of his age at that time.
But there was a need to have the aunt present because of his age, or is it just she just felt more comfortable because
She lived there. She was just being an auntie. It wasn't a need to answer your question.
so Detective Malone would Detective Malone have a conversation with David Tucker?
Yes.
And to your understanding, what did Mr. Tucker tell him?
I just recall that it was any pertinent information. He was attempting to get away from the conversation, but I didn't receive any good facts, honestly, from that particular interview. I can't recall exactly what he shared at that time.
And then after speaking to Mr. Tucker, he said that Mr. Malone also spoke to Mr. Tucker's aunt.
Yes.
And what was the aunt's first name?
I don't recall. I don't recall her name.
And what, if anything, did Miss Tucker say to Mr. Malone?
That he's not here. We were just looking to do a follow-up because I had arrived on scene to speak with him. So she just advised that he's gone.
And did she advise why Mr. Tucker had left the scene?
No.
So besides Mr. Malone speaking to Mr. Tucker and Miss Tucker, did Detective Malone speak to anyone else?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you said that there was a second investigator who was looking around the property to see if there was any surveillance, correct?
Yes, not necessarily looking around the property. They have actual security guards there, so they were just working with them to extract and take a look at what we had.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, were you able to canvass the area yourself personally?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and so to my understanding, this apartment complex has cameras in the hallways of the building, correct?
Yes.
And there are also cameras in the parking lot as well. They're attached to kind of like a light pole sorts.
Yes.
Are there any cameras that are attached to the outside of the buildings?
Yes.
Okay,
Are you asking directly on the buildings?
exactly.
Well, yes, because there's footage where I can see like the breezeway of the decedent's apartment. So yes.
Okay. And so how many cameras did you all extract footage?
We extract from all cameras. As far as how many that is, maybe 15, 20.
And so these cameras that you are extracting footage from, they are depicting what took place inside the corridors of the buildings, outside the parking lot, more generally as well.
Yes,
Okay.
breezeways, parking lots, hallways inside the buildings. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so multiple vantage points these cameras are capturing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It also has actual LPR, which is a license plate reader. So all the cars that come in and come out, there's actually a good camera that shows the tag of these vehicles.
Now, besides recovering the footage from the actual inside of the building, outside of the building, did Detective Malone speak to anyone else in regards to this incident?
Again, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. So did Detective Malone or the other individual have an opportunity to review footage on scene?
Yes.
Okay. And did that footage on scene display how many people generally were outside that?
No, because just with all the cameras that were there, what I still do not have is the actual shooting incident. So speaking with other witnesses are consistent with saying there were a group of people outside arguing, whereas I can't see that with the cameras.
Okay, so in speaking to this group of these individual witnesses, did they say how many parties approximately were outside that?
Yes, as far as all the folks that I spoke with, it was a range between about 5 to 15 people.
And did they explain kind of the genders of these individuals?
No,
The general age range of the individual?
young.
So they said like approximately all the 5 to 15 were all young males.
They just said young, and then there was a particular witness who I'm thinking about right now who was able actually to identify him by his nickname. And so it was him as an older person, and then everyone else is young. That's what I'm hearing.
And did the witnesses say they were all having a conversation with each other that night?
An argument,
Or-
yes.
So they said that all 5 parties, all 5 to 15 parties were arguing with each other.
No, they said the argument ensued between the decedent and the defendant.
Okay.
It was just other people there. And again, the cameras doesn't show like a group of people just standing around though, but consistent from witness statements, group of people there, but everyone wasn't involved in the verbal altercation.
Now, where exactly is this argument taking place within the parking lot?
There were 2 that happened on this particular day. One was earlier in the day, right outside of the decedent's apartment in the breezeway. And again, you can actually see this. I was told that there had been issues between management, like the apartment management and the decedent's apartment, which is under his mother's name, where there was a lot of people that would congregate outside of their apartment. So his mother, the decedent's mother, would enforce the fact that people can't stay here because they're threatening to kick us out. Therefore, the decedent earlier that day had to say some words to some people, which included the defendant to leave the breezeway because, you know, he doesn't want to have any issues with the management. That was an altercation that came and went. And then hours later was when there was a second altercation. I'm sorry, what was your actual question about? Like, where was it in the parking lot?
Correct.
If you come into the apartment complex that come in through the gate, you come in and there's a short distance before you get your first stop sign. It happens right before you hit that stop sign on the sidewalk.
And that smaller kind of corridor is between 2 actual buildings.
That is correct.
Okay, okay. And so if you come in through the gate, it's my understanding, Mr. Matthews and his family live in the buildings to the left.
To the left, as soon as you come in, that's correct.
And to the right is Mr. Teasley.
That's correct.
Okay, okay. So you're saying part of the argument took place in that area of parking.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when you said that the shooting itself took place outside of the view or camera footage, it's not in that particular parking lot that we're speaking.
Yeah, that's where it happened.
So the shooting took place in that particular parking lot.
Right there in the sidewalk. It's not going to be in the actual driveway, but on the sidewalk where you come in, right there to the right.
Okay. And are you saying that it's outside of the viewpoint of cameras that are inside the hallway of that building?
All cameras.
Okay, okay, okay. So far we have that there are 5 to 10 young witnesses, a variety of kind of conversations going on at some point, mainly between the decedent and Mr. Matthews. Is that correct?
Mr. Matthews and the defendant. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I apologize. Mr. Matthews and Mr. Teasley. Okay. And are all 5 witnesses saying this independent of each other?
The 5 witnesses were given to me by other witnesses. I wasn't able to speak with any of those on-scene witnesses besides Jabari Dixon, who was placed in custody the same day as Mr. Teasley.
Could you repeat that last statement for me?
Sure. The 5 people, I weren't able to speak with them. The only folks I was able to speak with is Mr. Jabari Dixon.
Okay, okay, okay. So you said you spoke to Mr. Jabari Dixon after you had him in custody,
He was
right?
placed in custody.
So besides Mr. Dixon, again, we know that there are upwards of 4 to 14 other individuals outside that night.
Mhm.
And to your understanding, did law enforcement have the opportunity to speak to all of those individuals?
Yes,
Okay,
refused to
And-
speak with us.
the ones that did actually allow you all to speak.
That's correct.
Okay, and so are the parties separated from each other while these conversations are taking place?
Yes,
Okay. And I'm presuming that this information would also be captured on body camera as well.
or just regular surveillance or audio
Okay.
footage.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. And during each of the conversations with each of the young males separately, are all of them saying that there is an argument, a conversation stored between Mr. Teasley, the defendant, and the decedent, Mr. Matthews?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. So besides kind of those conversations and the footage you're able to kind of capture from inside the building, camera footage that's attached to the building, are there any type of shot spotter technology in the area?
No, ma'am.
And so on camera footage, you said that 10 seconds after the fact, you saw Mr. Teasley with a weapon in his hand.
Yes.
Okay. So before the shooting, did you see Mr. Teasley outside?
No.
Okay. And so it's not a situation where you don't see him coming from any of the buildings to the left where Mr. Matthew lived?
No. The only time I see him near Mr. Matthews' building was during the altercation that happened earlier that day, which was hours before the shooting.
Okay. And you don't see him coming out of the building on the right where his girlfriend is still love or his family lived.
Only time I see him is 10 seconds after the shooting with the gun in his hand.
Okay.
In reference to the actual shooting.
All right. But do you, on the camera footage that you were able to see, do you see the other group of males outside?
I see yes, it's at the same point where I see Mr. Teasley on the surveillance cameras where they just cross paths.
So essentially at no point, you don't see the actual conversation before the shooting took place on camera.
We don't see the incident on any cameras.
And so because we don't have this footage available, we don't know who could have been the aggressor prior to the shooting taking place.
Is that a question?
Or do we know if there was an aggressive assassin for Teasley who's present?
Well, just the witnesses that I heard from, but no, the surveillance doesn't give me that information. Just the witnesses who I spoke with does.
Did any of the other parties that night that you all spoke to, did any of them mention having a gun that night?
They mentioned that the decedent had a gun that night.
Did they mention that they personally carried weapons or
Oh,
had a
no.
gun that night?
No,
No. Yeah, okay. So is it fair to say that none of those males that night were searched for guns?
well, that night they weren't spoken to.
So when you say, okay, so you say they weren't spoken to tonight, what do you mean? Like, what do
The
you mean
only,
they?
the only male that we spoke with was Mr. Tucker on scene.
Okay.
Did we search them? No, because he wasn't in custody.
Mhm.
But all the other people that I was able to speak with, it didn't occur that night. It was just over the course of the investigation.
Okay. But so going back to Mr. Tucker at some point notes that there are more males outside besides himself.
Yes, he is one who told me that there was that range of people who were outside, and he described the argument as well.
And was Mr. Tucker questioned at all about whether or not any of those males had a firearm on their person?
He was only able to advise me that the decedent did have a gun.
And so how did he know that he had a firearm?
Again, I understand that he's his best friend. So I just took that knowledge as, okay, you would know if he does have a gun.
Okay, so he advised that his friend had a gun and he had a gun in particular on the night of the incident.
Yes, which is still not located to this day.
Did he advise the type of make and model of that firearm that his friend carried?
No,
Did
but
he-
I did ask Mr. Dixon after he was placed in custody, was the decedent shot with his own gun? He advised no.
So going back to Mr. Tucker, is he saying that he saw Mr. Matthews seated with a firearm in his hand the night of the shooting?
Yes,
Okay. Is he also saying that he knew that Mr. Matthews is someone that knew to kind of carry a firearm on him?
Could you repeat the question?
Okay. Is Mr. Matthews also, Mr. Tucker, excuse me, also saying that Mr. Matthews is someone that he previously had known to carry a firearm?
he never told me that he's just known for it. I don't want to say that he said that.
So, and again, to my understanding, you're saying he said Mr. Matthews had a firearm in his hand the night of the shooting.
Correct. And he's not the only one who advised that of me.
Okay. Did he say what Mr. Matthews was doing with the firearm in his hand?
No, he mentioned that what happened just before this particular incident was the decedent was asleep in his room and he came outside. There's two different stories. Someone came and knocked on the door. The decedent stays on the first floor. So it's simple for someone to just come up and knock and say, come on out, which is something I understand that happens commonly for the decedent. But there's also a phrase that I've heard in my investigation that there wasn't a knock. He just came out on his own free will and he just had the gun on him. It was mentioned, this particular gun, in the verbal altercation that he had with Mr. Teasley. Put the gun down were words that I said, let's just fight, were words that were told to me by more than one witness who were out there listening to this particular argument.
Okay. And so based upon the information Mr. Tucker gave you about the fact that someone knocked on the door, told Mr. Matthew to come outside that night, are you able to see that depicted on camera footage at all?
No, I don't see anyone knocking.
So Mr. Tucker makes a statement about someone knocking on the door, and you don't see that corroborated on the video footage.
I can't see that, no.
In the door where Mr. Matthews lives, you see that earlier that day, Mr. Matthews is having a conversation with a group of individuals that includes Mr. Teasley.
That's correct.
Okay, do you see that depicted on camera?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, but later that same day, you don't see depicted on camera the fact that anyone's knocking on the door.
That's correct.
Okay, so Mr. Tucker essentially lied about
Mr. Tucker wasn't the one who advised me of that, but sure, that was a lie that I was told.
it. Okay. Do you see him coming out of his apartment that night?
I can't recall seeing him walk over to where this incident actually occurred. I can't say that he came straight from his apartment.
Do you see him at all that night walking around with a firearm in his hand?
No, I don't see that.
Okay. But witnesses are advising you had a firearm in his hand.
During the
No, just to
altercation,
ask
yes.
him.
At a time,
I'm
And I'll
gonna,
move on.
During the altercation, yes.
Okay. Do any of the witnesses advise who pulled out a firearm first?
No,
So they're advising 2 people have firearms out. That's it.
they're advising that Mr. Teasley called his brother to come out on scene. And it was at that time when Mr. Teasley felt comfortable to pull out a gun and shoot at that time. That's what I was advised.
One second.
Mhm.
While they're speaking, Ms. Candace, I don't think I put this case number on the record for you. 22CP210501, Roderick Teasley, and the charge is murder.
yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Since we are on a break, I just want to mention to everyone, if 2 or more people are speaking, it's going to be reflected in the record as an indiscernible parenthetical. I can't put my hands up fast enough, but if 2 or more people are speaking, it's hard to decipher who is.
Thank you. And thank you for filling in today, Ms. Sanders. Did they get you for tomorrow also? I mean, Friday also?
I'm in court with Judge Wall on Friday.
Your Honor, I only have a couple more questions tonight. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
And so, sorry, Mr.
It's okay.
Barry, Detective Barry. So we have 2 people at a minimum who are saying they saw Mr. Teasley with the firearm. That's Mr. Dixon and Mr. Tucker.
Thank you. Yes, with the firearm.
Are there any other individuals independent of Mr. Dixon and Mr. Tucker who give statements about seeing Mr. Teasley with a firearm?
With the firearm, no. They're arguing with the decedent, yes.
Ms. Gowdy, if you lean up a little bit, you fade out just a tad. I know you can speak loud, Ms. Gowdy.
I'm sorry.
That's not you, Ms. Gowdy.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is that better, Ms. Sanders?
Yes.
And Ms. Berry, for the purposes of the record, could you go ahead and repeat your last statement?
Yes, I will. What was the question again? I'm sorry.
So we were discussing independent of Mr. Tucker and Mr. Dixon.
Okay,
Were there any other independent parties who mentioned seeing Mr. Teasley with the firearm?
not with the firearm. They're arguing with the decedent, but not with the firearm.
Now, going back to, and this is my last set of questions, Your Honor. Going back to the discussion you had about Mr. Matthews earlier today having a conversation with Mr. Teasley. So
Okay.
that is reflected on camera. How many other people outside besides Mr. Teasley are present during that conversation?
It's maybe close to 10 people.
Okay. Now, do you see any of those 10 people later depicted the night of the shooting?
No,
And is it that you don't later see them later depicted because of vantage?
I would say, yeah, there's nothing that I can say to identify the people from this surveillance that I can see later as well. Even the Dixon boys, they weren't even one of the ones that were in the breezeways.
And the conversation earlier in the day, what was it about? Why were they arguing, you know?
Specifically at the breezeway, because the decedent asked everyone to move from his outside of his apartment. And that's due to his mom making him do that because she's getting heat from the management of the complex who doesn't like the loitering.
And is there any conversation about why people are loitering in front of Mr. Matthews' home?
No,
So no
just
conversation.
hanging out, honestly, was the assumption. But again, mom, who's the owner, well, the leaseholder of the apartment, wants them to move. So Dravion asked them to move, and there was just a discussion about it.
Now, later you said that you had 3 conversations with Mr. Peasley over the course of a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Okay. And at any point, did you recover a firearm that you purported to belong to Mr. Peasley?
Well, he never claimed to ever have a firearm. So the firearm that his child's mom has been collected.
And but were ballistics ever run on that firearm?
Yeah, they're turning to the GBI. I don't have the information back though.
Okay. And in the footage you were able to, I guess, view that depicts Mr. Teasley with a firearm in his hand, does that firearm match the firearm you recovered from Miss Love, the baby mother?
I can't recall the caliber actually right now of Miss Love's handgun. So I really don't want to say right now.
That's it for right now. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Secretary.
No problem.
Mr. Body?
Very briefly, Judge, in your speaking with Jabari Dixon, did he ever indicate to you that Mr. Teasley was armed when the defendant Rock shot Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And in your speaking with Mr. Dixon, did he tell you why the defendant shot the victim, Mr. Matthews?
Because of these altercations that happened that started as early as maybe, well, I don't want to say exactly what time, but hours before the actual shooting. So those 2 altercations was what grew into what we have that day on the 2nd of June.
And when you spoke with Jabari Dixon on July 7th, did he ever indicate to you that the victim, Mr. Matthews, before the defendant shot him, had threatened Mr. Teasley in any way?
No.
Okay. And that after the defendant's brother, Carlos Teasley, arrived, that's when Rock or the defendant felt comfortable to shoot Mr. Matthews?
That's correct.
And did he, I don't have any further questions.
Ms. Gowdy?
Okay. So do you see an individual that is purported to be Carlos Peasley arriving on camera?
Do I see Carlos arriving? Yes.
Okay. And during that time frame, does he arrive before or after the shooting?
He arrives before the shooting.
Okay. Okay. Now, going back to Jabari Dixon, what was he arrested for?
Murder.
Murder? Okay. And after he was arrested for homicide, he made the statement that Mr. Teasley shot him.
He did.
Okay. Nothing else.
Mr. Body?
Did you make any promises to Mr. Dixon that if he made a statement about this murder, that anything would happen to the charges that he was arrested upon?
No, sir.
No questions.
Gowdy?
Nothing else. Thank you.
All right, thank you. May this officer be excused?
Yes, Judge, and the state has no further witnesses.
All right,
Thank
Ms.
you, Your
Gowdy? You have anything, Ms. Gowdy?
No, Your Honor, no witnesses at this time. Thank you.
All right, go ahead with the argument.
Your
Judge,
Honor, we'll submit on the evidence at this time. Mr. Teasley is scheduled for a bond hearing this Friday. Nothing else.
Go ahead, Mr. Body.
same, Your Honor, the state would submit upon the evidence and argue, or I guess submit to the court that there's enough probable cause that was presented before the court for the charges of murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony as it pertains to the defendant, Mr. Roderick Teasley.
All right, the state has met their burden and established probable cause on those counts. So I'll sign that order as soon as I get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. And I would add that there's probable cause, I forgot to say felony murder as well, predicated on the aggravated assault.
So I'm sorry, those charges were aggravated assault and possession of firearm during the commission of a felony?
And then murder and felony murder.
All right. Got it. Yes, I'll agree. felony murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Thank you, Mr. Abadi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
And hopefully, Mr. Abadi, I'll leave this video up. Hopefully, the other two were able to find the YouTube channel. But if not, if you just tell them to Google my name in YouTube, they can find it and they can watch it. I'll leave it up for them.
Thank you, Judge. I'll have the victim advocate send them a link just in case.
Okay. Yeah, you just have to Google my name. It's not connected on that main screen. So just Google my name in YouTube and it'll be up there, and I'll leave it up there for them. It was just, we're having so many video and audio issues, just them unmuting was just making it really hard. But thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you very
And one
much.
question before we go. Ms. Sanders, what's your first name?
Candace, it's Candice, last name Sanders.
Thank you. Yeah, I have no further business from the court.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Judge, it was nice to see you.
Good to see you, Mr. Abadi. Do we have, we have another person ready? We got Ebony Brown, Trent Emery, and Gregorius Houston. I think Mr. West, you said you were here for Mr. Emery.
That's correct, Judge.
Okay. Let's see who they have here next.
If we are doing Mr. Emery, I guess it was an add-on. I don't have the CP number for that.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, so it's 22 CP 210030. Let's see who they bring out of the back next.
Thank you.
Do y'all want Emery next?
Whichever, is the state ready for Emery?
Yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry.
Sure. Okay. Sure.
Sure which defense attorney is here on.
Trent Emery. Sure. You can bring Trent Emery out next. That's-
Okay. Judge, could we go off the record on this case just quickly?
Go off the record for.
I'm going, is there okay if I just take a 2-minute break? Just to remind
Absolutely.
people to be
Sure.
quiet.
I'm just not sure about how you'd like me to do this procedurally, Judge, just because I'm still learning Georgia law.
Okay.
The defendant was charged with 3 counts of hijacking, and in review of this case, 2 of those counts should have been attempted hijacking. But since the charges before you are hijacking, I'm not sure if Your Honor would allow the state to just ask you to find probable cause on attempted hijacking instead of hijacking.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. So we got hijacking, 2 counts of attempted hijacking, armed robbery, and criminal damage to property. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. West? Is that?
I believe if they amend the charges, that would be what would be.
Okay.
correct.
All right. That way we're at least all singing on the same sheet of music. Okay. Yeah. And as soon as Ms. Sanders gets back, we can start and they get Mr. Emery. Mr. Emery's in custody, right?
He
Yes.
is.
Okay.
And I'll also note the bond's been set on these charges.
Mhm.
So that obviously would also bring up the issue of whether the bond should be adjusted to reflect the change in the charges, because there's different bonds for different charges on him.
All right. So what I hear you saying is you would like to address bond also.
I'd say that's accurate.
Okay. Bostic, you have you got a pretrial report on that, the add-on Trent Emery?
And Judge, while we're waiting on court reporter, the state doesn't have witnesses for positions 2 and 5.
Mhm.
So we would ask for a continuance to get witnesses here.
All right. Who's the,
Judge, I'm the attorney on position, I believe, position 5, Ebony Brown.
okay.
And Judge, I would object to a continuance. We've known about this calendar for quite some time now, and I'm not sure why the officer isn't here. Ms. Brown actually also has a case that was supposed to be in court today at 9:30 for jail plea and arraignment. I'm her attorney on that case as well, and we had to move a lot of things around to be in court today. And I'm sorry, I got distracted here. And also, this is a case where we moved a lot around to be at this prelim today because we believe that there is no probable cause in this case. So I do ask for you to dismiss the warrants as the state has no evidence to provide. This is the day that they should have been prepared.
All right, so what says the state? Is the officer not able to be found, he or she on vacation? What?
I honestly don't know, Judge. We had an investigator send subpoenas last week. And so I'm not sure if maybe they just didn't get enough notice. I don't know, Judge.
And Judge, I'm sorry, just to add, Miss Ebony Brown has been in custody for over 100 days now. Why don't we bring her out? Should we bring her out, Judge?
That's fine while Miss Sanders is gone, unless they have the other person out already.
There's no other defendants out, Judge.
Okay. This is that 22 SC case that she was supposed to have a hearing on this morning.
That's correct, Judge.
Did they just reset it or?
Yes, because we wanted to have the prelim because the defense is confident that Your Honor would probably not find probable cause in this case. So we felt comfortable enough to reset her other case to have this prelim today. And Ms. Brown is present now.
All right. Yeah, I want this on the record real quick since Ms. Sanders is back. All right, Ms. Sanders, we're talking about 22 CP 210539 as position 5. Ebony Brown, there's a charge of theft by taking. All right, go ahead if you want to make a good record.
Yes, Judge, go ahead.
Judge Sale moved for a continuance in this case. Our witness is not present.
Go ahead, counsel.
And Judge, the defense objects to a continuance. As I stated previously, Ms. Brown actually had another court date and a jail plea and arraignment this morning, and we sorted it out with that courtroom so that we could be here as soon as possible at her preliminary hearing, because the defense is quite confident that this court would not find probable cause. And there's really no good reason for the officer not to be here. We've known about this calendar for a long time. Ms. Brown has been in custody for over 100 days. This is the day where the state should be prepared. The state has no evidence to offer. So Judge, I ask that you do dismiss this warrant.
And this was just in front of me like 10 days or so ago, I think, for a bond.
She had a bond hearing recently. Yes, Judge.
Okay. Anything else from the state?
No, ma'am.
All right. We'll go ahead and dismiss that on. Well, has this been the first time it's been on a prelim calendar? Let me look. If the state's asked for a continuance, tell me how long are you asking for? I think this calendar was just actually finalized a couple of weeks ago, maybe.
Yes, I believe our office got notice beginning of last week, or it may have been the end of the previous week, but at any rate, we sent a subpoena to the officer at the beginning of last week. And so if we could have another week.
And Judge, this is going to be a problem for us because as I said, the other court was generous enough to accommodate us so that we could have the prelim today. And now Ms. Brown is going to have to wait for that calendar, for this calendar. it affects more than just this hearing. And the officer was subpoenaed and the state has no evidence to offer. So I do ask that you find that there is no probable cause here. And the calendar, I believe I received it on October 12th.
Is Miss Lewis still in there? I think she may have. Miss Lewis, wasn't this just finalized a couple of weeks ago?
What's that, the calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And I tell you what.
I'm using my laptop for court, Judge, so I can't pull. But,
On the last page of the docket, it said it was placed on the calendar as of October 12th.
Yeah, that was not too much ago. Let's see. What about
And Judge, I guess I would just have to add that it doesn't sound like there's any reason. So if we come back, it sounds like it's very possible the same thing could happen again. It doesn't sound like the state has had contact with this officer.
do you folks know if the officer still works there? Do you have your investigator or no?
I don't know, Judge.
So my solution sometimes to this is like, and counsel, it's up to you. I mean, I could either get a few options. I could continue it. I could possibly convert the bond to a UJR. And I say this because if not, and they go do a direct indictment, if it's dismissed and she gets out, then they go back and arrest her. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. And we'll leave what to do up to your discretion.
What about you, counsel?
Judge, I ask for you to dismiss this warrant.
Let me pull that real quick so I can finish looking at it. Sorry, Odyssey was acting a little bit slow with me today.
Yeah, with us too, Judge.
All right, she's got the others. I could go ahead and dismiss this one. And I guess you could just let your client know that they do a direct indictment, there'll be a warrant issued and they're going to come back and pick her up on this, or there'll be a hold. And then if there's an indictment, it has to go before the judge that handles, that the case is assigned to.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
All right. All right. Counsel, you ready on
Judge, if we could go ahead and take care of position 2, the state also does not have its officer on that one and would move for a continuance.
all right, is the defense attorney there on this one?
Good morning, Judge. Attorney Kristen Howell on behalf of Mr. Houston. We would be objecting to that reset and ask the court for a dismissal as well.
So was the officer not able to be located?
I don't know, Judge.
That's okay. All right, Counsel, I'm just looking at it real quick. So Ms. Sanders, this is 22 CP 207-864 Travarius Houston. Is there an open case down the street, juvenile case? Do you know?
I do not know, Judge.
Do you know, counsel?
I do not, are you referring to the alleged victim?
Right. I mean, is it like dependency or something?
I do not know, Your Honor.
Judge, I'm being told that there is an open juvenile case with the alleged victim, with the victim.
Okay. Like dependency?
Perhaps.
Is this alleged victim related to the defendant?
I do not believe so.
No, Your Honor.
Right, I'll kind of tell you the same thing. They could do a direct indictment. They can do a direct indictment. Yeah, they'll go back and pick him up. I don't see that anything else is holding him here, or I could do it on a UJR.
Again, Judge, we'll leave it up to your discretion.
If I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
And Judge, while we're waiting, I'm not sure if there was anyone inside the courtroom for position 1, if we are going to make an announcement on that.
Oh, sure. If there's anybody in the courtroom for 22 CP 207859, Phil Devrin Carter, that case was dismissed on the state's decline to prosecute. So if you're there on that case, you can leave.
And Your Honor, we would be asking the court to dismiss the charges against my client. He is aware that the state chooses to direct indict the case, that he would have to turn himself in at that point and proceed further.
Do you have any idea, Madam Prosecutor?
No, sir. No, no, ma'am.
That's okay. That's all right. I know I got a deep voice, short hair.
I think it's just a habit. Apologize.
That's okay. Women can be judges too.
I know.
Right. All right. All right. I'll go ahead and dismiss this one. And I'll just tell you, Mr. Houston, that like your attorney said, they do they do an indictment, and there's going to be a warrant issued for your arrest. So this doesn't mean the case is over per se, but it means that, you know, they could go back, re-indict, and still come and pick you up. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. All right. So we're ready for Mr. West. If we'll wait, and I'll bring out Mr. Emery.
And Judge, all those other orders are in the queue waiting for you.
All right. You put them in the nighttime queue, right?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Oh, someone.
You're just waiting on the defendant to be brought out, I guess.
But I used to, not too hard, but I have a robbery. It was a crime, but yeah, I used to practice. That's how.
All right. like we are there, we're ready to go. So, Mr. Emery, you can see that your lawyer there, Mr. West, is on Zoom. You can see him? Okay, you're right. So this is the add-on calendar. It's position 1. It's 22 CP 210030. Trent Emery. It's hijacking a motor vehicle, and then the state has advised that there's 2 counts of attempted hijacking a motor vehicle, armed robbery, and criminal damage to property in the 1st degree. Retrial. What do you got?
Judge, besides this case, he has one other arrest. It's an open case in court for aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer from October of last year. Nothing further.
All right. Thank you, pretrial. Fantastic. All right. Go ahead. Who do we have? We have a detective up here. Deputy will swear him in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and nothing but?
I do.
Please say.
First
All right.
name, Douglas, Douglas. Last name Terrell, Terrell.
Detective Terrell, where are you employed?
City of Atlanta Police Department,
How long have you been with the City of Atlanta Police Department?
25 years.
And what is your job there?
I'm an investigator for major crime division robbery unit.
Okay. Were you working in that capacity?
September 28.
On September 28th of this year,
No, September 28, 2021.
2021?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And in the course of your employment, did you have reason to investigate a robbery and or carjacking?
Yes, I did.
All right. Will you tell the court how you got involved in that case or how Atlanta Police got involved in that case?
Okay, on September 28, 2021, APD Officer Campbell was dispatched to 1600 Peachtree Street, Northwest. That's the location of the Savannah College and of Art and Design School, reference to a attempted carjacking.
Okay. Who did he speak with when he arrived?
He speak to a security officer that worked for the school, Officer Chain, that's spelling Chinn.
All right. And what did Security Officer Chain say occurred?
Okay, so while Security Officer Chain was employed during that day in full security officer uniform, driving a Savannah College and Art security vehicle that's marked with the words, was patrolling the parking deck when a white male, Caucasian male, dressed in camouflage, approached his vehicle while he was sitting inside, pointed a bow and arrow with the arrow inside, and the bow is pulled back, and advised Mr. Chain to get out the vehicle.
Okay. And this address where this occurred, is that in Fulton County?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What did he say happened next?
So once he identified the threat, Security Officer Shane drove off and notified Atlanta Police Department.
Okay. In your investigation, did you speak with anyone else regarding this incident with the security vehicle?
Yes. So when APD Officer Campbell responded to the scene while he was in the area, patrolling the area looking for this individual, another call came up at 1438 West Peachtree Street.
Okay. And
Northwest.
is that in Fulton County?
Yes, it is.
Okay. But let's go back to the security vehicle. Did you or any other law enforcement officer observe any video cameras or security cameras in the area?
Yes, we did.
All right. Did you review any of those security cameras?
Yes, I did.
All right. Did anything capture anything happening regarding this incident?
Yes, it showed a white Caucasian male, white male, wearing camouflage, approaching the security vehicle with the bow and arrow. And you observe the security officer driving off away from the threat.
Okay. Now let's go back to the other person that came in and reported something else to Officer Campbell. Who was that?
Okay, so a Mr. Jason Chandler, He was driving a 2009 Audi in the area of 1438 West Peachtree Street, Northwest in City of Atlanta. When a white male dressed in camouflage used a fire extinguisher, threw it at his vehicle, busting out the windshield, also a side window of his 2019 Audi, and it swept the man and the victim and owner of that vehicle to exit the vehicle. Mr. Chandler, again, he took the keys and ran away from the area, and the vehicle was not taken during that time.
Okay, and you stated that the offender in this case threw a fire extinguisher.
Yes.
What damage, can you tell the court about the damage
The
that,
damage came from the windshield of the 2009 Audi and the back window. I don't know where the back side window, cause when I arrived and seen the vehicle was gone, but it caused and some minor body damage also.
okay? Could you estimate or did you get any kind of estimate about the value of,
Talking to interviewing Mr. Chandler, he was working on the ask how much it would cost to and repair his vehicle. It's it's in the thousands.
in the thousands?
Yes.
Okay. All right, what happened next?
So once the accused did not take that vehicle, he walked down the street and approached a 2014 Toyota Corolla driven by a female Portia Robinson. She was stopped at a traffic light in the driver's seat when she observed a white male dressed in all camouflage, pointing born arrow at her, and demanding her to get out exit the vehicle.
Okay, and what did she say happened next?
So she was in panic, so she exited the vehicle, left the vehicle running, keys inside the vehicle, and ran off and tried to leave from the threat. And that's when the white male dressed in camouflage with a bow and arrow got inside the vehicle and drove off.
Okay, drove off inside the Toyota Camry that belonged to Miss Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What happened next?
So during the investigation in Atlanta and at the scene, trying to get videos and interviews, we received a call from the city of Marietta and Cobb County Police that
Had the Atlanta Police Department put out any bolos?
I'm sorry. Yes, we did. Once, I apologize. Once we got the information on the vehicle that were taken, we put out a bolo throughout the surrounding county, state of Georgia, through GCIC, and they'll put a bolo on a carjacked vehicle and maybe armed and dangerous.
Okay, and what happened next?
So, city of Marietta, Cobb County made contact with this vehicle. I forgot what location it was, but it was in Cobb County and in city of Marietta area. They did a stop on this vehicle. City of Marietta police officer exited the vehicle, and that's when a white male wearing camouflage outfit exited that 2014 Toyota Camry that was taken in Atlanta, with a bow and arrow, pointed the arrow at the officer. The officer shot the individual in the right arm.
Okay, and about how long after the Miss Robinson said that her car was taken, did Marietta stop the?
I think it maybe an hour and a half after the fact.
All right, did any law enforcement officer speak with Mr. Emery?
Yes, so once it was a shooting by officer, GBI unit arrived on the scene and took over the scene, called the investigating the shooting of the incident. Made contact with a GBI agent, Ryan Long, which interviewed Mr. Emery, the accused, and he did doing the interview after he ran his Fourth Amendment rights, explained to him that he that confessed to all three of the incidents that were occurring inside the city of Atlanta.
Okay, was that his Fifth Amendment rights, Miranda, that he was read?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And what did he say pursuant to that interview? What did Mr. Emery say pursuant to that interview?
Sort of in narrative that he stated that he how he got the car, where he got the car. He was somewhere in Atlanta, unknown whereabout. He remembered walking through the parking deck without describe the school that he was at. And
He described the location that he was at when Miss Robinson's
yes,
Toyota
yeah,
Camry
in
was.
Atlanta. We got control. I'm sorry. We got control of the vehicle.
He described that location where he got control of the vehicle.
Right, it was in Atlanta when he got control.
Okay.
When he got control of that vehicle.
What else did he say?
That's all I remember this time. Again, all this is we record interview is uploaded as evidence. Again, they when he confessed to all three of the incidents, how he got possession of the vehicle, where the vehicle was taken from. That's where I had enough cause to issue warrant out for as well.
Okay, did he make any statements regarding the other security vehicle or the Audi?
Far as the damage, he remember he having a fire extinguisher, and what happened from there, he far as damaging the vehicle itself, and that's it.
So did he actually say, yes, I threw a fire hydrant at the?
I don't remember that part of it. No.
Okay. So how was Mr. Emery identified as the person that committed these three, the two attempted carjackings and then one?
With the
carjacking?
video that we gathered from Savannah College of Art and Design, 1600 Peachtree Street, Northwest Atlanta, inside the parking deck, it's showing that the individual that was wearing the camouflage outfit, white male, and also with the bow and arrow, which that don't never happen in the city of Atlanta, doing the attack, doing the assault with the security officer at that college. We were able to determine that was the same individual that was in possession of that vehicle that was taken during the carjacking the same day, 30 minutes apart. They're going to be the same individual that are involved in the cases in the city of Atlanta that was shot in Marietta College.
Okay. And do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify him for the court?
A white male wearing a blue inmate shirt with a mask on.
Okay. Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant.
All right, it's noted.
And I don't think I asked you, officer, the case with the black Toyota Camry where it was taken. Where did that incident occur?
That incident occurred where it was taken in area 1438 West Peachtree.
Okay.
Northwest in that he's saying we use that same general area because once he's damaged the Audi, he just walked down to the next block and was able to wear less than a block, and he saw the Camry stopping at lights.
Okay, and that's in Fulton County?
Yes, it is.
Okay. About how far away are all of these three? Did all these three incidents occur?
Again, it's amount of blocks started at 1600 Peachtree. That's not that far walking distance to 1438 West Peachtree, all in the general area. And it's walking distance from it, east direction. So you don't have to get in the vehicle. You don't have to catch a ride. Everything is walking.
Okay. And was the bow and arrow recovered?
Yes, it was. Cobb County had possession of that. Police department, City of Mary had possession of that in the evidence.
Okay.
Facility.
Right. No further questions, but subject to redirect.
Mr. West?
Thank you, Judge. Detective Terrell, good morning.
Good morning.
So you were dispatched how long after the first call came in from Savannah College of Art and Design?
So the first call came in at 5:30, around 5:30 a.m. I responded around about 7:45 a.m. the same morning.
So had all of these incidents already been completed, so to speak, before you had actually started your investigation?
Yes, sir.
So all the information you're related came from other officers or patrol units who responded to each of these individual circumstances?
Officers, video footage, and also victim.
Okay. So did you interview each of these victims yourself?
No, I just interviewed one of the individual as we was that was Mr. Chandler. Once we was looking for video, see can we during the time processing scene, getting video footage. That's when the information came from Cobb County that individual that were involved in these crimes in Silver Atlanta was apprehended and was involved in a police shooting.
Now, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, at 5:30 in the morning that it would have been dark outside.
Oh yeah, around about September 28th. Yeah, about dark.
So when the initial incident occurred, you said that he came up to a marked security vehicle on the college campus. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. Inside a lit parking deck.
Inside of a lit parking deck. And so the video camera is on one of the levels of that deck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was it in nighttime mode or daytime mode when it recorded the video? In other words, is this video in color or black and white?
It's in color, I believe. I can't be safe, but you can able to see this individual was a white male with camouflage outfit on.
Okay. And you can make out the bow and arrow in the video?
Yes, sir.
Now, did for all intents and purposes, is it safe to assume the security officer also was wearing some kind of security officer uniform?
Yes, sir.
And did he indicate that there was any interaction other than the individual coming up and saying, "What? Get out of the car"?
And actually was performed when the accused pointed that bow and arrow at him and advised him to get out the car. That's when once he identified the threat, that's when he left the area.
So he drove off?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he have his window down or up?
That's a good question. I can't remember that at this time.
Okay. And he left and contacted police. So his call would be the first one that came in. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
He didn't attempt to apprehend the individual in any way or take any action himself?
No, sir, he didn't. Like you said, the thing is, I don't know what arm or anything like that. I don't think they are. I think their main purpose is to identify any danger or any criminal activity going on. And once they identify, I think they're instructed to call APD for assistance.
So they don't have any armed security at SCAD as far as you're aware?
I don't think so, sir.
Okay. So the second incident would have been the one with the Audi, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And as I understand your testimony correctly, the description the person gave is that the white male in camouflage approached and began to strike the car with a fire extinguisher?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was there any indication of where that fire extinguisher came from?
No, sir.
Was there any indication, was that fire extinguisher ever located?
No, sir, we did not.
And I would assume, since you didn't discuss it, that there was no mention of a bow and arrow by that gentleman. Was there?
No, sir. Again, white male wearing camouflage with a fire extinguisher, striking and throwing at his vehicle.
But I mean, I would assume you asked him, or someone asked him, did you see a bow and arrow on this guy? That's something that would have stood out, I would think.
Right.
Was that question?
The question probably came up, but I don't know the response to that.
Okay. And then let's talk about the damage. Did you personally observe the damage to the vehicle yourself?
No, sir. It was listed in the report also by the testimony of the victim.
Okay. And the listing in the report was at the time that the incident happened. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
So has there been any follow-up conversations with him related to the damage to the vehicle by yourself?
No, sir.
Have you received any estimate or any indications of the actual cost of the repairs that were done in this case?
Not this time.
Okay, but the indications where it was broken glass and some type of body damage or paint damage?
Right, busted our windshield and the rear glass. Not the rear windshield, but a window, back window.
Like a
was
quarter
busted.
panel window, right? That doesn't
Yes.
open or close.
Right,
It's one of the small glass in the back.
yes, I believe so.
Okay. But you can't state here today for this court what the value or the cost was related to the damage done to that car, can you?
Like a 2009 Audi, it can be in the thousands. But far as me as an expert, no, I cannot.
Okay. And then this individual, how long was it between each of these three incidents? Do you know the exact times between them?
No, I know when the the responding officer to that one that responded to the college, he was still canvassing the area searching for the suspect. That's when the other multiple calls came up while he was still there. So it's not that far apart.
Okay. And so then the young woman whose Toyota was approached, do you know what the time was between that and the Audi?
No, I sure don't. Everything is on dispatch records. That all that should be available for you, but I don't have it right now. But again, all that was in the general area. Again, me and another investigator responded around about 7:45, and all three crimes was committed. So between the original dispatch at 5:30 to 7:45, it's all around that same area. And he was able to leave this area and drive to City of Marietta.
Now, which of these individuals, if any, have actually seen a photograph or seen the defendant and made an identification positively matching him to the individual involved in their case?
No one.
None of them.
No.
All right. And what was the time between the last encounter in Atlanta and the encounter by police in Cobb County? Do you know those times?
I was at the scene during the time when that information provided. Again, you had to allow some time for the time of the traffic stop, the time of the shooting. So if I probably was there, maybe I'm just not accurate, maybe an hour before that information came to us. But again, you have to understand that it's really filtered down before we got it, because all commotion was going on during the shooting when the officer did shoot the suspect.
Okay. Now, you weren't present at the shooting, correct?
No, sir, I was not.
So you can't, when you're identifying this, my client in court, you can't identify him as the person that was shot by police.
The information that, again, from police, a white male wearing camouflage outfit, pointing a bow and arrow at my victims here.
Correct. Your visual identification today is based on what?
For the information that the name that was given to me by the Cobb County, I was able to pull up his driver's license information, and also a photo of him that shows the individual sitting right there at my table that they had in custody. That he was in possession of my victim in South Atlanta carjacked vehicle.
So your identification of him as a defendant is based on the Cobb County photograph they took after he was arrested there.
Arrested there wearing the same, yes, sir, wearing the same outfit and pointing a bow and arrow.
Okay. Now, you would agree that this is a fairly unusual crime or set of circumstances?
Yes, sir. It's not that many people walk around with pointing bow and arrows downtown City of Atlanta.
Would you, to your knowledge, in your reports, have you received any information? The state asked you a little bit about what he said to these individuals, but to your knowledge, is there any information about anything he said at any time during the investigation to police especially after his Fifth Amendment rights were read to him, that related any specific reason for this, any indication of why this happened?
No, sir. If it is, the information is recorded by GBI agent Ryan Long that is doing that content, doing that interview portion of it. Again, I have not listened to that to the whole video almost a year now, so I don't want to say well, yeah and nay on that.
All right, that's all the questions I have, Judge. Thank you.
Anything else from the state?
Just briefly, Your Honor, the fire extinguisher and the Audi, you stated that the defendant did tell the occupant of the Audi, Mr. Chandler, to get out of the vehicle with the fire extinguisher?
Yes, all three victims, he stated to them, get out the vehicle.
Okay. That's all I have, Judge.
Anything else, Mr. West?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Just argument, or is there another witness?
State has no further witnesses and rests subject to
Rebuttal? This is all right. Mr. West, do you have anybody?
No, Judge.
All right, go ahead with the argument.
Judge, the argument I would make would be, number one, obviously, as the state indicated, the evidence before you is that there was 2 attempted hijackings, it sounds like. So the charges related to hijacking, 2 of the counts, I believe, would need to be amended if the court believes that this individual is the person responsible for those, at least under probable cause standard. It should be held for those charges. The criminal damage to property is a felony offense that requires the state to show sufficient evidence that, in fact, the level of damage done was, in fact, a felony level. There's no evidence other than the fact that it's an automobile. There's no evidence of the cost of the damage. And it's been now quite some time. They certainly could have presented that evidence here at this hearing almost, well, more than a year later. Car glass, I've had to deal with it. I'm a Jeep owner. It doesn't cost $1,500 to replace the glass. So there's no telling what the cost was here, and it's their burden to complete a felony offense to carry that fact to the court. So I would ask you to find that if there's criminal damage to property, it's a misdemeanor offense, and if you find on the other counts, to amend them as I have indicated. Thank you.
All right.
Judge, we will submit upon the evidence that there's probable cause for 1 count of carjacking against Miss Portia Robinson of a black Toyota Camry, and that the defendant was armed with a deadly weapon when committing that crime. So it would also be an armed robbery, and 2 counts of attempted carjacking against Security Officer Chen, and attempted carjacking of the Audi of Mr. Jason Chandler, and the criminal damage to the Audi in an amount in the thousands.
All right. So I'll go ahead. Probable cause has been shown on the hijacking motor vehicle, and I'll amend the other 2 to be attempted hijacking of a motor vehicle. And they've met their burden on armed robbery. As far as the criminal damage to property, damage to the Audi probably is that, but we don't have any proof of the damage because he said there was paint damage and the windows. So, so you understand, Mr. Emery, they can, when they do an indictment, they can still indict on that, but I'll dismiss the criminal damage to property in the first grade just because we don't have proof of the actual damage. But probable cause has been shown on the other 4 counts. And Madam Clerk, if you just amend that to attempted hijacking a motor vehicle.
So it will be no probable cause on the 2 hijacking, and then new charges of attempted hijacking.
I think that's probably the cleanest way to do it, don't y'all
That's the
think?
cleanest way, yes.
Yeah. So basically, Mr. Emery, what you'll see is that there's 3 counts of hijacking a motor vehicle. 2 of them, we're going to say no probable cause, but amend it and add 2 counts of attempted hijacking a motor vehicle. So we're just cleaning up the record for you, okay? All right, Mr. West, anything as far as I know, let's see, his bond status right now, I know you said you wanted to address that. Do you want to go ahead and make your bond argument? You heard from pretrial, so you want to go ahead and make your bond argument?
Yeah, so Judge, the bond has already been set in this case. It appeared before court and a court of competent jurisdiction, considering all the proper factors, found that bond was appropriate. He's been in jail in quite a while. He has not been indicted, obviously, as of yet. I would not change. I think it would be disingenuous of me to request the court to change the bonds on the charges that have remained unchanged. So I would ask that those remain the same. That would be the hijacking would be at 75,000 and the armed robbery would be at 50,000. My request would be the attempted hijacking charges be reduced to $25,000 each and set. I think that's a reasonable amount. The total bond here is still going to be dramatically high. I'm not certain his family would even be able to make that. And of course, there's also the Cobb case. And with the dismissal, obviously we don't have to deal with the bond and the criminal damage to property.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Madam Prosecutor.
Judge, with regard to the two cases that were amended to a attempted hijacking, the defendant's conduct in all three cases was the same. The only difference with the attempted is that the victims did not give up their vehicles. And therefore, since the defendant's conduct was the same, the state finds that the bonds are reasonable in all three cases.
All right. So let's see, I'm pulling up here. Looks like I set this bond on September the 9th. Know where he's going to be living, Mr. West?
We both do, Judge.
I guess my basic question is it in Fulton County? I guess we can hear him. Mr. Emery, are you going to reside in Fulton County?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It would be, I believe he would reside in Davenport, Iowa, Judge, which is where his family is.
No, I'll be in.
That would have been the same information we presented at the prior bond hearing.
You're not going to live in Iowa, sir? He just said something else.
No, it's in Marietta, actually.
Oh, he's going to live in Marietta. Okay. All right. So here's what we'll do. Let's see, he's been in custody 128 days. No further contact with Portia Robinson, Jason Chandler, and Carlisle Chin, Chinn. Stay away from 1438 West Peachtree Street. No drugs unless prescribed. No alcohol, no weapons. You're going to be on a 24-hour curfew. Court, lawyer, medical visits can let him go for work as long as he submits the name of his employer, the location he's going to be working, and a schedule. Yes, submit that. Not only that, to the bonding, to your attorney who can give it to the state, and also to the ankle monitoring company. You're going to have that ankle monitor paid for by the county. You'll have 48 hours to have that ankle monitor placed on your ankle once you get released from whatever's happening up in Cobb County. And also make sure, Mr. West, that address in Marietta where he's going to be living is filed with the clerk's office. Let's see. So we've got 75,000 on count one. Count two and count three will be attempted carjacking. So we'll make those 65,000. So 75,000, 65. Leave armed robbery at 50. And of course, count five is the criminal damage to property. And that was dismissed for lack of probable cause. Got that, Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes, Judge, 75 on the hijacking, 65 on the two attempted hijacking, and 50 on the armed robbery.
Yes, ma'am. And then that criminal damage to property is dismissed.
Is dismissed, yes.
All right. Anything else, anybody?
That's it, Judge.
All right. Thank you so much. Y'all can be excused. So, thank you so much. Ms. Lewis, did we find a thank you, Bostic? Ms. Lewis, did we find I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. Did we find a court reporter? Do I need to try to find one for Monday? How many for Friday?
I'll have to check with Peter. I'll put it right after.
All right. And Bostic, we'll have you.
And I guess they're gonna try try to figure out about, they literally, monitor